Okay, everyone, we are going to finish the day with some panel discussions with Dr. Bichelle, Dr. Dennis Law, Dr. Varnett, Dr. Weiss, and Laura Birmingham. We've run a little bit over, and I think everyone could use a drink. And so I think that a really great, we've taken so much information in today. We've had so many presentations and heard from so many different families. And the day today really becomes a grind. And today was a good day to think about SLC 6A1 from a 10,000 foot level. And so I'd actually like to ask everybody if Dr. Weiss agrees this is a good idea, because she just knows everything. Like, what's the best use of our time and money from here on out? You all have different backgrounds and opinions. It's hard to know what our blind spots are when we're in the daily doldrum.
It's on. So thanks, Amber, for having me and sitting next to this amazing group of experts. To answer your question, I think I'll ask you back, what is your goal? Your goal, I assume, is to have companies want to develop therapies for your disease, right? So those of you who do not know me, I started a company called Mazi Therapeutics, and the reason I started the company was to work with groups like yours and develop therapies for disorders that most other companies are not interested in developing therapies for. And my goal, which is aligned with yours, is to get more companies interested, because there's so many diseases and so few companies at the moment. And how do we get more companies interested? From my perspective, you're doing the right thing. You are getting ready to participate in clinical trials, whether it's a repurposed small molecule or a gene therapy or an antisense oligonucleotide. You're doing it all. My perspective and my thought is that as a person who started a company and took money from venture capital to start the company, how do we get investors interested? Because there's so much money, as you know, Amber, in venture capital that's not being invested in rare diseases. How do we make these investors understand that this is a community that's worth investing in? And I think it's more than just getting an approval from the FDA. It's actually telling the investors the community is big enough for a company to be able to sell drugs afterwards and make money. So find as many patients as possible. And also, these drugs are going to be reimbursed by payers. So it's not enough that the FDA says, yes, this drug is going to work and it's safe, but we also need to make sure that the payers will pay for it. So what will the payers, how will I convince investors? It's not the same as convincing the FDA or convincing payers to pay. So it's like three prongs that you have to think about, but they all converge into one thing: being ready for clinical trials, having a biomarker, having as much data as you can collected, natural history, it is helpful. And the moment a new drug comes along, you hit the road running and you generate the data and you show everyone how valuable this community is in getting the drug to the market.
I really do think you guys are doing a really good job. I mean, the first thing you did was start finding patients, and you found so many patients. That was a big deal. And to continue finding patients, I think that's really, really, really crucial, getting them involved. And then the second thing is to make it easy for the investors. So to have all of the resources there ready that they can't do. So for me, the foundations should do what fills the gaps that the scientists and industry can't do or won't do. Those are all the little things. So it's the things that I sort of just said is what I think the foundation should do.
Yeah, so I fully agree with these topics. There's just another topic where I think is important, and maybe there's maybe the opportunity to focus on this short term a little bit. So typical, so SS6A1 is not different to other disorders in that space, but we heard this today like 4 or 5 times from the family stories, and also I know your story. It's all always on the parents, right? So even if you have access to an expert center, right? You know, if you talk about an expert, they're typically expert on one thing, right? So, and no one's expert on the whole thing. It's the parents are these, right? So, but it's a big burden, and with the complexity in the behavior is so much, right? So I personally believe that there needs to be some more social support in general, and there needs, and with the weird U.S. system where the payer structure in each state, it's hard to move out of a network and all these kind of things. Building like a nationwide support network where families, parents can talk to, not just one-off visits to a hospital and then goodbye and then you come for a seizure. So there needs to be a really strong support network where also a physician can go to and learn about the disease and get educated. There's a lot of liability issues when one physician who knows maybe the disease a little bit wants to help another physician, and so and this is not so straightforward to solve, but hardly anyone is working on it, and then they think there's so much day-to-day need until all these drugs are on the market, which would increase the quality of life for parents and their children so much if there would be emphasis on support in general.
I'm probably the newest to the field here, but so I don't have a lot of opinion about where money goes, but it's been so exciting to hear so much focus today on behavior. As neurodevelopment, I get really excited to talk about behavior. So I do think that spending more time, as has been the theme throughout today, deciding on a standardized scale, a standardized way to track behavior, to assess the severity at the beginning and follow it over time. In some of my recent reading, a lot of times when we assess behavior and that gets published, the questions are you concerned with behavior, yes or no? And while helpful a little bit, that doesn't give us a lot of details. So discovering those details and being able to talk about those more and follow them would just be very helpful.
So obviously I have the same question as Amber. So thank you for all of your thoughtful responses. I feel like one of the things I say to Amber most often is, Sandy can speak to this as well, what is the best use of my time? And we don't always know the answer to that. But what you've done, Amber, in the amount of time you have and where we are is remarkable, yeah. So to the families, I hope you can get out of this how much Amber has devoted her entire life to this, and really she's the reason we're all here and we've come as far as we are. So thank you.
No.
Can I talk for a minute about videos? Because it came up in Terry Jo's talk, and something that we think about a lot, and I'd love to hear from the audience, Scott Demarest as well, and whoever else has experience with it. So I was talking about we need endpoints for the FDA, but we also need to convince people that our drugs are working. Now, before you start a clinical trial, you have no idea what a disease-modifying or potentially disease-modifying drug will change. Will it change just the seizures? Will it change cognition? Will it change communication? We don't know. So to capture everything about a child before a clinical trial is a lot. So how do we do this in a way that's manageable to families? And then have the video of the post-treatment, which will be convincing to people that we're not just capturing this tiny little micro sliver in time and showing a small change, but this is something that's really impactful for you as a family. And be able to show it. I'm just thinking about my board, right? I'm sitting in a board meeting and I pull out a video and I show a before and after and how this will impact them and maybe convince them to open their pockets and give me more money so I can develop more therapies and continue. So these visuals are so critical, but they need to be done so controlled, in such a controlled manner. And I don't know how Casimir does it, because Duchenne obviously is very different from a neurodevelopmental disorder. But I'd love to pick your brains and think about it here in this community, how we can do it in a way that will be helpful to me, to investors, to regulators, but also not a burden on the families. It's one thing that maybe as a community you can invest in thinking of a plan of what's your video plan. It's something that I haven't heard anyone talk about before, but have a video plan. What would you be filming before a treatment? What are the most important things for each family? And how would you envision capturing them changing after treatment?
Yeah, maybe just one thing how we do it now for a couple of things. So, for example, tomorrow, so my team's just arrived. What we are doing tomorrow with, I think, 12 families for SCNA Day at their conference is I have a couple clinicians with me and a couple behavior specialists and biologists. And what we have is we have cameras in 3 different angles. And then the family does on one hand like an interaction, the child with the parent, and they just need to play with certain toys. And this is then recorded, one thing, and the child is wearing a wearable. So the Empatica watch, which can measure heart rate, skin contacts, whatever. So that's one thing. And the other assessment what we are doing is a neurological exam, standardized and graded, and at the same time also wearing the watch. And the watch can measure all the 3D movements, and if you do, for example, finger to nose, you get like, if you have enough controls, you get basically the normal movement. And then you, depending on the muscle tones or so, you get different kind of signatures for that moment if you time sync it then out. And on top of this, we have the video. So you can post hoc also score this by movement specialists. So this is the way where we want to measure the individual ability of a person and then see if they can improve. If you have enough people, you can develop, ranges. And we have done this in summer with like 28 children with SCN2A and 20 controls, siblings. And we are doing tomorrow like another 12 families. And so everyone who comes to our multidisciplinary clinic gets this, and we are trying to build this up. So next year, I hope, and also here. That's that we want to.
I just wanted to tell you briefly how the Casimir system works, because we do have the opportunity to work on that right away. They come up with particular things that are important to your disorder. So for SLC 6A1, it might be motor skills, it might be behavior, it might be communication. Once you come up with all that, which is a whole big process, then they come up with very specific instructions, and you do it on your phone. I'm doing it right now for my son this week. I had to take a few days off to be here, and then I have to go back and finish. And so there's very specific instructions. You always have to sit in the same place or walk in the same place, and you videotape it just like that every single time, so it can be scored exactly the same. And so it's actually really regulated. The whole trick is just to come up with what matters for SLC 6A1 and what matters to families, and then also what might respond to the treatment, whatever the treatment is. So you have to look at all those things together, and then you can put it into action. We could do it soon.
This will be really helpful.
let's see what time it is. Okay, it is. Maybe people have questions? Oh, that's a great idea.
And if not, that means that we can go have drinks. You had enough time before.
I know. I forgot to plug the EEG bank. I could hear Kevin yelling at me right as I said, I'm so proud of myself. And then I thanked Kevin. I was like, I forgot to plug the EEG bank. Please, as much as you can, encourage anybody with SLC 6A1 and their families to upload EEGs to the matrix. Over time, if we have enough of them, we'll be able to look for the signature. That's all. And it's free.
Yeah, just also one comment from my side. So I noticed today and across many of the talks that, for example, that there were data points presented. For example, the violin was presented in a couple talks. And I noticed that the number of participants was sometimes 10 people, and another study was 30 people. And I know that this data is, in the Simon Searchlight project is greater. So it seems to me that there is still a lack of collaboration among scientists here, and also a certain limitation of data sharing probably. And this is something which cannot happen, right? So this is just inefficient and also wasting money, and potentially even not giving you the p-values you need if you would have a couple more people in a study which are existing. And so maybe we as the scientific community need to think a little bit better that, or making use of the data which is already available, and not everyone needs to generate data themselves, which might be already available through other sources.
I just want to plug real quick that is happening, and it's very exciting. We're up to like 62 charts all collected from UT Southwestern and CHOP, and I think CHOP has some more to add. And so I'm really excited, but yeah, I agree. We need all the collaboration we can get, and part of that is how do we access the EEG bank?
Oh, you just call just text me. No, it's a very simple form, and it will be, no problem. And for academics, it'll be free. For industry, it'll be a charge, but not exorbitant.
Lindsay has a question.
How do we access the matrix to upload them?
Talk to Sandy.
The matrix, if you have done any kind of a blood sample at all for the biorepository for Combined Brain, you have already accessed the matrix. There you go. If you haven't, speak to me after class. Anybody else? Laura, what do you think would make lives easier for SLC 6A1?
Well, I think it's clear, and I feel like it's been said over and over today, how behavior really has the biggest impact on our lives. Seizures, not that nobody wants their child to be having seizures, but as far as the trauma and the impact on our everyday lives and being able to just live a life, it's behavior. And so I love some of the ideas about measuring behavior and quantifying it, and then looking for treatments that affect not just seizures, but behavior also. So I think that's what would make our lives easier, is some real answers for behavior. But again, we might need to measure and study it a little bit more first. Or a cure. I'll take it.